to Facebook. Recording in progress. Okay, give me 2 secs while this starts up. Okay, we are on. So hello everyone and welcome. Welcome to another installment. I'm getting better. I'm getting more consistent in these episodes. 2024, we were just talking off air about a few things that was so true for me as well. But I'd like to introduce my very, very special guest today, Miss Désirée DuMonde. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And you know, when you're introducing a person, it's always a little bit like, what do I say? But I'm going to read directly from your Instagram page because it's fucking brilliant, basically. So Désirée DuMonde, please follow her on Instagram. Her content is aesthetically freaking beautiful. I love looking at everything that you post. So you call yourself a singer, a life coach, facilitator of consciousness, steward of possibilities, gardener, horse lover, world traveler, and joy bomb extraordinaire. How does it get any better than that? Thank you so much for being here. And I think you've nailed that description perfectly. So
thank
how
you.
does it get any better? Yeah.
If you're going to have a title, make it congruent to the best parts and the future you desire.
Exactly. And hey, if you can't talk the best about yourself, why no one else has got any friggin' chance of doing any better. So you might as well describe yourself exactly as you truly are. So
True.
thank you so much. I always get excited about having people on this podcast because it's called Let's Talk Horses, which I don't know about you, but it's one of those topics that I can literally talk about all day, every day. Like it's something that I'm just like, and so meeting people and especially being people that function from this place with horses where we've found, we were talking off air a little bit about how we do desire to have these conversations now because it's almost like people are willing to hear something different with horses and consciousness in general. Like there's actually some cracks opening in the world of places that people are willing to hear this. So the first thing I love to know from people is how did horses come into your life? Like how and where was that moment for you? And maybe it wasn't a moment, maybe it was something else where you were like, I'm a horse girl.
Oh, where wasn't it there, really? I think it's one of those things like I can remember as little as maybe 3 or 4. Like my grandpa is a Wyoming man, and horses was just an automatic. It was like as soon as she's big enough, we got to find a horse for her to ride. But also it was an idolizing of grandpa, the Wild West, Wyoming. He always would. It was just from the beginning. And I also learned how to sing a lot of songs, and a lot of songs have to do with horses and horse rhythm and cadences. Grandpa would say, like, this one's a steady trot, so keep the trot. And we'd sing harmonies together. So horses and music just sort of were always there. That was like everything to me since as little as I can remember. He also used to take us up as kids to see the wild horses. So
Yes.
I've been able to see wild horses my whole life. And to me, it was just this all mixed in with Rainbow Bright and He-Man, like cartoons as a kid mixed with seeing the wild horses and then going to the rodeo, to seeing grandpa up on a horse. Like just everything that I loved seemed to have a horse attached to it.
Wow.
And so yeah, when was it not there is basically more the question. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like literally like my dream childhood. I look at the childhood I was born into and I'm like, I think I took a wrong turn here somewhere because I was basically like your childhood. I'm like, that would be a dream of mine. Like that is just literally, yeah.
Well, I was actually the city slicker kid that didn't get to have a horse. So we were
Uh-huh.
in Colorado, and like every time we went to Wyoming, my grandpa was like, we got to cowgirl this kid up. She's too much of a city slicker. So I too was always longing for it. And then I had
Uh-huh.
a taste for it. But I also, like from 8 to, I don't even know, I was working like a dog, saving money, doing any chores and babysitting so I could get myself lessons. Anything I could do to get around a horse I would do it.
Uh-huh. Okay, so there's definitely similarities there because I'm exactly the same. I mean, I grew up on the coast into a family of like surfers, so we were at the beach all the time, but also very fortunately here where I live on the Sunshine Coast, which is also where I grew up, funnily enough, even though I've spent a lot of time in a lot of parts of the world, it's a very horse place. And even though you're on the coast, you just take a 10, 20-minute drive inland and you're in the country and well, the country, Australia's version, and there's horses everywhere. So I would literally just even if I knew we were going to drive past a paddock with a horse in it, I would demand to be in the car wherever we were going. It was like, so what is that for you? What is that magic? Like, if you can describe it, like, is there a way that you can describe what is that horses have that is so potent and like this elixir that they create or something?
I love that question. Well, I love that question and I love to live in that question. But I do know for myself, it's taken me a long time to put the words to it. And thank you to Access Consciousness so I could identify it. But
Mm.
I would say speed of clarity.
Yeah.
So it's just so quick to the clarity. They're so much faster and more spacious than all the emotional banter in the human mind that really has been such a confusion point until I had the tools of Access Consciousness. But with horses and with music, those were the two places that everything was speed of clarity. It was moving faster. Everything was getting, we were in a co-creation. Everything was so clear and inaudible, even though in music, obviously it's audible, but there's this inaudible place of speed and clarity and communion. And I really wanted my friends to be more like horses. I was like, so I think it would be just, I'd go from playing as a kid, playing with my friends, going to school and whatever, being a happy kid. But whenever there was a horse, it was just so much faster and yet more
Yeah.
still. So speed of clarity and then a relaxation. So I could actually, it would take me a while. It still does. Horses are so fast that it takes me a while to be like, wow, I've been doing a lot of double take, doubting, like overthinking. Even in 10 or 20 seconds, I can overthink
Yep.
so many things. And the horse is just like, you're good. I like you just the way you is. Why don't you like you the way you is? Like, so it just
Right.
put me into a space of like, yeah, there's a speed and a relaxation, but there was also like an instant co-creation. So I wasn't trying to figure me out and figure the horse out. We're now together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like I've talked a little bit about like herd energy kind of thing and like how much it truly is like for me exactly like you said, and also for me they are just the epitome of energy. Like everything they do is just based on like that energetic communication. And just what you said then, this inclusiveness is kind of like the word that was coming up when you were describing it, where the moment you're with them, if you're willing to in whatever way request to be a part of their world, they will instantly invite you into that herd that they are. And whether it's one horse you're around or 50 horses or whatever, there seems to me that they have this sense of a herd and what a herd truly is and how that truly operates in the world. And yeah, and just their willingness, exactly as you said, to see you as you are in that moment and just be like, hi. And
Totally.
they don't care. They don't know what judgment is. They have no idea what that is. And when we start doing it, they're like, what
What?
is that? Like, it's like this whole level of confusion and noise in their world. So,
Yeah, that's so brilliantly said. Because the real freedom is you go beyond being liked or disliked, and a horse doesn't. If I mean, it's so funny. If you're trying to like a horse, you're gonna get nowhere. It's like I always used to say, a horse is never a pet. It's like it's something so much greater. You don't have to try to figure out a relationship, and that
no.
is so relaxing for me to get to just
Yes.
approach whichever horse it is, and if you have an ongoing creationship with a horse, but always approaching this beautiful creature with whatever it is and being approached in the truth that I am. Like a horse isn't approaching me with I like you, I don't like you. It's approaching me energetically, and it's immediately so relaxing for me. And I think with the tools of access and people who haven't been around horses very much, and I'm definitely no expert with horses, but if you would like to be approached beyond those positive and negative judgments, then just put yourself around horses.
Yeah.
They really get you to see you as the being that you are.
Yeah. 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 There's a lot as well in their world. They don't, we have a tool in Access which sort of was kind of put into words quite recently about this thing of like not making things personal, where all throughout our lives we make everything personal, like why not, how, should, could. And like you get around a horse and they'll do horse things, like they'll run, they'll buck, they'll do things where you're like, oh my God, like if you were functioning as though you were with a person, or the way that we think we should function in reaction and how we engage with things, we'd constantly be offended by them. But in their world, they're like, nothing they do is ever, ever, ever personal.
Yes, which is the caveat back to that inclusive herd mentality, because they're present with you, but they're present with so many more things. And we've been so indoctrinated to interact with one thing at a time and react and respond to it and interreact. And horses are like, yeah, I'm here with you, and I'm also here with all the other horses, and however many miles in all directions. Like you just it shows you. I don't know, I like to say, like, people tend to be so self-interested even when they're trying not to, like, oh, even I call it like a pessimistic narcissist. We have to use these tools to snap out of it because we're just looking at the wrongness and what's wrong with me. And with a horse, they're so inclusive with everything and so present with all of it in that engagement way. It's like you don't have to have any, yeah, like you said, nothing is personal, and everything is like relevant in a way, but not personal. So every energy, it might create an adjustment. Everything's creative rather than emotional. It's kind of awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really, I think, like, and this is why, in Access, we also have this specialty called Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, where the facilitators and people coming along to these classes get a chance to actually combine some of these tools with horses and look at like creating a world where we have availability to this. And the reason I love, facilitating and attending these classes is because for me, it's a real avenue into horses showing us that world, which to me is like an invitation to what's truly possible for us to have as our life and reality as well. So, yeah.
So much so that I love attending the Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider class. And for me, I'm like, how many more can I choose? I'm just always looking for them and wanting to add them to my world, because I still notice, and it's going to be a journey. It's a practice, really. It's a muscle we have to build. But when you're playing with the tools with the horses, it's so fast to see how quickly we'll go into our head. And it's like, it's mind-boggling how much I still, especially in those classes where I'll still grapple with everything. Like I remember sort of, it's not really like a story, but I remember like this space that I was before I bought into anybody else's points of views about horses, like just the fearlessness, the desire to just figure out, like in a diaper, how can I climb up this tail and get on this thing? Like there was nothing that I had between me and what I knew was possible. And then in admiring like my grandpa and admiring the people around me, like my dad and I used to horseback ride, and he loved horses, but he was also scared of them. And I knew it as a kid. I could feel his fear. And then I tried to value his fear of the horse, and maybe he knows something I don't know. And so in these classes, you kind of come up on so many places that you're holding on to other people's points of views, other people's experiences, keeping you from what you actually can know and trust, not just with horses, but with like everything in your life. It's so fast in that class. I'm just like, wow, I am still validating mom's point of view, grandpa's point of view, because I thought he was wonderful. And what we do here is, if we admire people, do that, but you don't have to buy into all of what they believe about everything. And the horses are like, I love your grandpa too, but that's not relevant right now. Don't be scared of me the way he was,
Yeah. Yeah. Truly, like the way that they invite us to everything that we're actually really capable of, and who we are truly as a person. Like I always talk about, you get around a horse and you like have this projection of like, I am going to blah 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 with you, and the horse just goes boop boop boop, sees straight through everything, goes to like the needle point of what is truly going on inside you, and is like, fuck all that other shit. Like, I don't even, none of that. I'm just going to go straight to that point of what I can facilitate and change for you right now. And that's where we're going to go.
Mm, that just reminding me of that, like that sharpshooter energy that horses have. That's also like the give and take with a horse. Like I have had the most tremendous experiences in the last few years of thinking like, let's go in the round pen. I'm working on lunging. I'm not good enough at this, so I've got to practice with you. And the whole time is like showing me a completely different way of being in question, or bursting that bubble of some childhood thing that I've been avoiding like the plague. And we don't lunge at all, and suddenly it opens up and I can get to a different place. And then there's a completely different reality, and the horse will, yeah, like, and they will always take you right to what might be in the way as well, showing you what's in the way between you and, gosh, we could have a joyride right now, but meanwhile you have this like anger or this thing, and let's like they take you to it. And that's something that I've noticed, and Gary Douglas has said it so many times, like the horse will take care of you. And I know so many people have a different point of view, like you know, you got to be careful and be cautious, and there's all these other ways. But when you really get that, it's like I recently was at El Lugar riding, and we were having this nice walk, like maybe a trot, I don't know, it was raining, it was beautiful. And then my horse started to rear up like 3 or 4 times, and my gut reaction was to have adrenaline and panic. And then I expanded out, all of life comes to me at ease and joy and glory. And I went to the question because I was like, I know she's taking care of me, even though my auto response was like, I've done something wrong, or she's misbehaving or something, which is not my point of view. So I had to nip it in the butt and be like, okay, what is this? And immediately, like in the question, she shows me a picture of her from the front, which I can't see. And her lead rope was still on and had fallen. She's tripping on it. And so she's trying to like pull her head up to get me to know that, so we don't both tumble over in the mud. By the time I pull the rope back up and we settle in, my whole body had all these goosebumps of like, I've got you. I wasn't going to let us go faster. I wasn't going to let us. I have you. I have you. I have you. And that was, I mean, there's been many experiences like that, but this one in particular was such an awareness of how quickly we'll go to what's wrong and adrenaline, rather than what's right about this, and how much is this creature in communion with me and aware of something and having my back far greater than I'm even willing to sometimes, or you know, most of the time. They show us how to have our own back and to receive.
Yeah.
To
And
really
like,
receive.
yeah. And just you talking then, it's like, because I know a lot of people out there maybe listening to this podcast, I think in some way horses have their own version of, like, I mean, people have their own version of something with horses. Like everyone pretty much on this planet, well, a lot of people would think about horses and stuff comes up for them, whether it's that they get around horses a lot or whether they've never really been around them. But the thing I love as well is you don't have to, like, you know, listening to something like this, you don't have to be interested in riding horses or anything like that. Just even inviting this energy into your world, because and I know it's kind of been woven throughout this podcast, but really what I see them as is an invitation to everything that will make our lives easier, this world greater, and all that sort of stuff. And just when you were talking about that, then really the cool thing about them as well is if you go to question, like if the first thing you're willing to do with a horse is ask a question, that opens up everything. And I think I've even, maybe just now I'm realizing even more, they basically exist as a constant question. Like it's a constant in their world, that it's always a question of some sort, is where they function from, is how they thrive on this planet, and how they've thrived over hundreds of thousands of years, is that constant willingness to never conclude anything and absolutely question everything. So
Yes, I mean, talk about a golden ticket to thrival and
yeah,
aliveness. And I
yeah,
see that like it's in all horses, but I do have to say if anyone out there has the opportunity to get out and see some of the wild mustangs that are still out there in the world, it is really something because as you see like when you know the story of it and you don't have to buy into everything and have a point of view, but when you realize these horses are these indomitable misfits, they're like ragtags, they will make it, they will thrive in any circumstance, and they might be driven to some barren land that has almost no water or grass and come out of nowhere just thriving with muscle and strength, and no one knows where the hell they've gone or what they've been doing or how they're so alive. They're just like they have it out there, and
yeah,
there's something that I just had the pleasure of witnessing countless times, and I just saw them again this last summer, and just coming around the corner and coming up on this lone stallion just right on the edge of a 900-foot cliff, and he's just like covered in mud and baking in the sun and just so in question. There are no problems, there is nothing they're anticipating, there's no prepare in advance for tomorrow morning. It's like I'm so present. Hello, whether today's my last day or the beginning of a new world, I'm having this right now, are you? And it's just like, okay, wow.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
just incredible. And I know they live in a way of question and mystery with that. So the universe is willing to always like show up for us when we're in question. And when we do, we thrive like that too. It's like our bodies turn on and we come so alive in every choice that comes from a question.
yeah. And the thing that, and I'd love to just explore this a little bit more before we end up here, is your involvement in how the wild horses have played a part in your life. But the thing I love, I mean, we have wild horses in Australia. I've never gone out and seen them, but it's definitely on, like, to come to America and experience some of the wild horse herds as well. But I follow a lot of pages on Instagram and watch a lot of things. And the things that I really also enjoy is everything you've just said. Like, we take these animals and we domesticate them. We take them out of their natural environment and we do things to them that they were never really designed to do, but they do it for us because that's them. That's what they do. They contribute anything.
Yes.
But you watch a wild horse, and I have two horses here in Australia of my own, and I try to do my absolute best by them, and we buy all this food and all of these supplements and all of these different things for them, and they're in a reasonably good condition. I mean, and then you see this wild horse, exactly like you said, living on the scrap of nothing, searching for water constantly every day. And this thing is like the epitome of health. They don't have a farrier coming out every 5 weeks to trim their hooves. They don't
Yep.
have a body worker massaging their body, and they are stacked with muscle. They're built in the way that they were designed to be built, and that is purely because they have a communion with the earth and with their environment around them that I don't think we'll ever get a chance to replicate, or maybe one day we will. We'll find a way to actually live in communion with them, in a way where they can still be that.
Yes, I mean, what would it take? And there are so many wonderful books and stories and things that if that lights you up, there's so many amazing, great stories of many, like hundreds of years really, but of wild horses in communion with people and them continuing to live wild and what are the infinite possibilities, and also horses love like there's this sense, and I don't want to project that they love anything, but there's also this desire in their world to contribute to you, like you said. And that is
Totally.
something that I have been asking. The more I use these tools and the more I receive and get quiet and listen and pay attention to them, it's really, if you want to learn more, I guess, about being a contribution to the world than just being around horses, because I can't think of one time, one horse in my life, all the different horses and the different ways they are raised or taken care of, that wasn't ultimately there to somehow be an energy of protection and taking me to home, whatever home is greater, relaxed, more peace, more space. I mean, every single interaction has been taking me to something greater. And I would
Yeah.
like to match that. I'm like, okay, what if we were more like that? And we are able to be, and we can, and these tools get us to that. But it's
Yeah.
also just it's such a tremendous uh it's such a tremendous opportunity to see the wild horses and the domestic horses, and they still are equally just like gifting you everything. Whether whether you ride them or touch them or ever even get close to them isn't the relevant. That's just a fun choice if it's fun for you. But you can just tap into the wild horses and they'll give you a reminder of what it is to like have it here. Like, we're
Yeah.
alive. You
Yeah.
know? They
Yeah.
just,
And
I have pictures of them all over my house because every
yeah.
time I look at them, I'm like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
That energy, that energy. And it's like what I was talking about at the beginning. Like, I've really explored this global herd mentality where all horses, whether it's a domestic horse living in Australia or it's a wild horse on the plains of Wyoming, or like, a high ranked dressage horse in Europe, like whatever, there seems to be this global herd energy that they share. And that's why I love it as well, because even if you're out there listening to this and you haven't ever been around horses, or it's not even a super big desire for you to get there, you can tap into that global herd and they're all a part of it. I feel like somehow they're all connected to each other as well, where even though my horse in Australia has never met my horse in Costa Rica, somehow they share a connection with each other that is available to us as well. Like, and this is where like this global herd energy is something that I'm just sort of starting to discover, and is really like this huge energetic invitation and gift that they give us. So
Mm.
yeah, I wanted to just quickly, because they contribute so much to us. Like, it's really this place where there's no limitation to what they're willing to contribute. And now I'd like to just briefly talk about what can we contribute to them. I know you're very involved, and there's a lot of things that we can be for them that's going to create a greater future. But I know you're also involved in a lot of like awareness and charity work and stuff like that around like the herds of wild horses. Can you just quickly talk a little bit about what that is and how that's been a contribution for you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what you were just saying, that like that horsepower, that kind of the global herd energy. Um, w One of the things that like there are many nonprofits and there are all kinds of things that all of you out there might be interested in and want to contribute to. But one of the things that I've found is with particularly the Cloud Foundation, which is up where I always got to see these horses growing up. I just there's certain advocates that are really willing to be in a question, and there's something about this particular group that to me is just, it's a thrill to be that gift to these people. Of course, at the end of the day, the contribution is getting to the horses and postponing helicopter roundups. I mean, it's creating a voice in court, and there's all these things. We're feeding the voices, we're feeding change. But rather than looking at it as trying to save them or doing something like that, what I really enjoy is loving the horses alongside of other people that I don't have to know. It's like the herd mentality. So if you follow some of these, I have goosebumps now, because when you follow people that you admire, the lady who runs the Cloud Foundation, she has spent decades out there in a tent and a camera. She loves them. She loves them in a way that just can melt you to your knees. And I love her loving them. I love the horses too, but I love the voice that she's created, and I love contributing to her and all of the people she inspires and the future she's creating with people falling in love with the earth. So I go to it from, I like to stand alongside of others, loving the third thing, loving what's outside of us. And that starts to create that horsepower, that global consciousness with us.
Yeah.
And there's also, of course, this immediate, when you contribute anything, your energy, your money, your attention, you're immediately gifted. And horses are so instantaneous, as you well know. There's no lag time with horses. So even if you tap into all the horses right now, you're instantly, oh, my phone just dinged. You're just, it's like they're right there. So when you fall in love with things with other people, we're also instilling what we know. So as I contribute, a lot of the classes that I create, there's always a percentage that goes to either horses or whales or the things that I love to contribute to, things I've been in love with my whole life. So everything I create has some percentage, but I also create specific classes, and it's just fun. The class is the class, but all the funds are going to the horses, and then that horsepower is instilled into those choosing the class, and then the consciousness that we choose is like a relief to the space of the world, and the horses are like, yes, giddy up, kids.
Yeah.
So it's an unspoken sharing and caring for the world. And one of the things, if I can do anything in this lifetime, is just to be an inspiration to care more and to love more, not from pity and not from saving, but from question and possibility, from gifting and receiving, to not be shy with what, you know, takes you to your knees, what amazes you. And to also share that with people, because we're living in a time where everybody's very individuated. And I long for more people coming together, to be together, to love horses together, to sing songs together, to sit around a fire and ride at sunrise together. And that's the stuff that really changes the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that so much. Thank you. Because I think there's a lot of people out there looking for this energy but we're always almost indoctrinated to look for the problems and try and solve them. Like even with the wild horse peeps that I follow, it's a very similar thing where it's all a lot about the doom and gloom. Whereas if you're willing to just look at, hey, I know there's a different possibility available, and rather than trying to focus on fixing something, I'm going to navigate my ship and steer my ship towards what I want to actually create here, which is exactly what you said, more communion, this energy of like when you contribute to something that's true to you, it instantly changes things, whether it's money, whether it's energy, whether it's like an actual task or a doing, like that. Having that as our focal point rather than trying to fix problems is something that I think is also very, very important and cool in my world too. So thank you for putting it that way, because I think sometimes we think, people like us, we're like, oh, you know, sometimes it's like, oh, well, I'm just a dreamer, how can that actually change something? But I think with consciousness, and that's what I love about access consciousness, because it puts consciousness in a way that you can actually talk about it and quantify it in some sense, that you actually start to see that we're the people that, if there's enough of us that are willing to choose, it can truly change the whole world. And yeah.
I mean, it could be as simple as just the admiration of the horse's beauty, and that's an actual energy that's going out. And one of the things, just simple things, it's like I have a lot of students and young ones coming and going out of my house, and they're always seeing all these pictures of horses, and they're always asking. And it could be as simple as they just start to wonder, like, I wonder why she loves that, because in their head they only know horses as far as they were exposed to horses. So just when we expose what we care about, and yeah, if there's ever a foundation in my interesting point of view that is not about gloom and doom, but about encouraging people to fall in love with wildness, please check out the Cloud Foundation. And I don't represent them or anything. I just happen to love them, and I love the way that they love.
Yeah.
And that's what we can really be infectious with, is our enthusiasm, not our resolve plans. Resolution plans are kind of boring, but enthusiasm and adoration is so infectious.
Thank you so much. And I would love to say, like, if you could take something away from this podcast, and my challenge to myself and challenge to everyone out there is, what's one thing that you are that, you know, melts you to your knees, like you said, that you are so actually enamored and in love with, that you could expose to the world that would actually change the world? What's one thing that you held so close to yourself that if you were willing to show the world how much you love it, it could actually create a force of change in this world that you never actually knew was possible, just by exposing it like that? So thank you so much for that invitation. And yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So anything else before we finish up? Is there anything that, I just feel like this has created
I
such
love
peace in my world.
what you've created. First, I just want to say thank you for creating this. And this is it. This is like, let's talk horses. I mean, clearly you're a horse junkie, and that alone is such an invitation and a big smile on your face. Like if you just say the word horse. So whatever people love out there, like it could be, let's talk music, let's talk whatever it is you love, creates consciousness and creates more change. And yeah, like it's all the things. So with horses, like I learned, I'm again not at like some expert cowgirl or any of these things. I always think every day I know nothing about horses, and you just and I don't. It's the space of question. And that's maybe something that could be great to end on, because everything I truly love, I mean, I love a lot of things, but those things that really hit me in this lifetime is music, horses, wildlife. And they're all the things that I wake up in the morning thinking, I don't know anything about this. Maybe I've been singing, maybe I've been singing my whole life, but I wake up like, I don't know anything about singing. And I always thought that that was an ineptness, or I twisted it into a self-doubt until I found Access Consciousness. And now I realize that that was an innate sense of exploration and curiosity. And I was never fixing myself. Music was too precious to me to try to fix it and make it rigid. And I tried to do that, and it really was challenging. So if you love something and you wake up every day feeling like a beginner, that's an indication of such an enthusiasm and an infectiousness in your life, not something to doubt yourself. And so the tools of Access, in conjunction with what you love, to stay in the question, but to be creative without fixed points of views, it's such an invitation. And horses teach it, music teaches it, and whatever you love will teach it to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that, because literally that is exactly how I feel about horses. And you know what? Like when you say it, when you were like, I feel like I know nothing about horses, instantly I go to, well, they're the best horse people. To me, the best horse people are people that think they know nothing about horses, or that are new to horses, that are just starting that journey, because they aren't locked into a rigid format or the conclusion of what's going to work. So, but thank you for saying that, because man, fuck, I've spent my whole horse life thinking I know nothing about horses, and I never actually put it in those words exactly. I always knew it in some way it was a capacity, but yeah, what if the things exactly that you think you know nothing about are the things that you actually know everything about, because you're willing to ask a question? Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, that times a godzillion. It was Gary
Yeah.
Douglas who said to me once, because I was going on and on in a class about, I don't have the, I've loved this and I've trained in it. I was speaking to music and I have a career, but I've quit, and my credentials are crap, and I don't know how to start again. And he was like, you don't need credentials. And it was one of those times where I was trying to make myself wrong for not having enough of a fixed way of presenting myself, and didn't value what you just reiterated. I wasn't valuing that in me, that I'm the eternal child with what I love, but I do have skill and presence and tools as an adult. That's a really cool place to be. But I have to remind myself, with these tools, to nip that in the butt, that I don't need to prove to myself that yesterday now builds on today. With a horse, it's like, you got to be present. So what's right about not thinking we know anything, but we can access knowing everything from the present moment? It's so the same with music. So if there's any musicians out there, I hope it really rings true, because for a long time, when I didn't get to have horses and I was the city slicker, music was my horse to ride. And now my real question to end on this is, like, I'm really learning from Gary and from Dane that it's our life becomes our horse. Like, you get to be so present and ride that beautiful life. So
Yep.
I just thank you so much, because the space of the podcast, the joy that you are, I was like, oh crap, I'm not like I love horses. Does that count to be a guest? I love them a lot, but I don't know how to really test my cinch knot very well.
I still forget. I've made a video, because if I've got a million things going on in my mind and I go to cinch my horse and I'm like, I'm going under and then over, and then I'm like, fuck, I'm just going to watch the video and remind myself, because it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
I totally get it, my friend. I totally get it.
Thank you. How much fun.
Thank
I
you.
loved this conversation.
Yeah, and this is really what, for me, what the best horse people in the world are all about. So thank you so much for just being here and being like a horse, present in the moment, not based on anything from 5 seconds ago, let alone yesterday. And what would it take to have more of these conversations in the world and invite people to know that this can be your life? Like you can live from a place of actual joy and freedom and possibility. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I'll post some places. I started exploring a little bit about Cloud Foundation, but I'd love to look into it more, and I'll share those links with the world as well. And obviously, please jump on and follow Desiree everywhere you can, because as I said, her content is aesthetically very beautiful. And thank you so much for being you in this world and being here at the same time as me. And I look forward to seeing you somewhere in person soon. And until then, yeah, right on.
Awesome. Yeah, right on.